10 Sinister Rules I Must Follow While Working the Haunting Night Shift in a Cursed Mojave Diner. Ava never thought she'd end up here, gazing at the flicker of the neon sign casting eerie shadows across cracked pavement. The Lonely Spoon, a diner wedged in the Mojave Desert, might be a lifeline, but it felt more like a trap. She took a deep breath, knowing the rules would dictate her survival tonight, especially after hearing whispers about the waitress who vanished 2 months ago. Shivers crawled up her spine as she stepped inside the dimly lit diner. The sizzling bacon should created a cozy atmosphere, but it just amplified the feeling of dread. Dizzying pictures of past customers, all smiling oddly, lined the walls. Were they alive when they were captured? Or had they been swallowed by the shadows? She dismissed the thoughts with a shake of her head and focused on the first rule: never look too closely at the shadows. Minutes ticked by like hours as a handful of late-night regulars filled the booths. Their eyes were vacant and twitchy. A man with a too-wide grin sipped coffee, glancing too long at her. Was this normal? Tension hung thick in the air, thick enough to choke. Suddenly, the phone rang, jolting her from her anxious thoughts. The sound seemed to resonate deep within the diner's walls, and a wretched feeling clawed at her gut. She picked it up to hear Jake's panicked voice on the other end, his small breaths hurried and terrified. "Mom, there are figures by the windows. I think they're watching me." Her heart raced. "It's okay, Jake. It's probably just your imagination," but she knew that tone he was genuinely frightened. She hung up, dread pooling at the base of her stomach. The next rule loomed in her mind like a black cloud: don't trust the regulars. Ava scanned the diner, her pulse pounding in her ears. And there the man with the grin was watching her through the glass, a shadow encasing him. She'd seen him before, always tipping too generously, always lingering just a beat too long. Instinct screamed at her to flee, but she forced herself to maintain composure. Maybe she was just overreacting, but what if the whispers about the waitress were real? Before she could rationalize any further, she noticed the flickering fluorescent lights above her. Panic rose again, but she steadied herself, reminding herself of the rules. A sudden crash echoed from the kitchen. Alarmed, she stumbled back, eyes wide. The last unspoken rule hung ominously in the air: the darkness watches, and you cannot escape. Just as she thought it might be safe to leave, the lights flickered violently, plunging her into utter blackness. Ava's breath hitched in her throat. That shadow at the window moved closer. And then it was over her. All at once she wasn't alone. A chill wrapped around her, chilling her to the bone. "Mom!" Jake's quiet voice flared up in her memory, flooding her with urgency. She needed to save him. But how could she fight back against whatever lurked here? It was as if the diner itself was holding her hostage, and with every heartbeat, the walls whispered secrets she didn't want to know. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ava moved toward the back door, her hands trembling as she reached for the knob. The shadows seemed to stretch and writhe around her, pulling her deeper into their darkness. Just as she turned the handle, the kitchen crashed again. She froze. Something sinister was behind her, lurking in the shadows. Every instinct told her to run, to escape the terror, but in that cursed diner, would she step into horror or salvation? As she awaited what loomed behind her, gripping the cold doorknob tightly, she wondered, would she leap into the unknown, risking everything for her son, or remain chained to this nightmarish fate? Ava's heart raced as she turned toward the noise, the cold doorknob feeling like a ghost's grip on her wrist. The moment stretched, a thick silence thickening around her. She forced herself to breathe, but the air felt heavy with dread. The shadows were alive, swaying and whispering secrets, beckoning her to join them. "Jake," she murmured, her voice almost lost in the darkness. She needed to move. Needed to see if her son was safe. The disarray in the kitchen continued behind her, sharp clangs piercing through the stillness. With a final push against her instincts, Ava yanked the back door open. A gust of hot, stale air hit her face, bringing the scent of sun-baked earth and despair. She stepped into the alley, but as soon as she did, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The sound echoed ominously, sealing her from the terror inside. Ava's eyes adjusted to the darkness. The alley seemed to stretch infinitely, lined with walls that seemed to close in, an oppressive weight surrounding her. The diner's back entrance was a mere sliver of light behind her, and every shred of her being urged her to return. But Jake was out there. "Mom!" came a faint voice, closer than before but laced with panic. It was like a hook digging into her gut, pulling her deeper into urgency. She bolted toward the voice, each step accompanied by an echo of her footfalls reverberating against the walls. Unbeknownst to her, shadows followed her every move, curling and shifting in the periphery of her vision. "Jake!" she cried, desperation clawing at her throat. She could barely hear her own voice over the pounding of her heart. The shadows flickered, morphing into shapes that danced just outside her sight. Fear lanced through her. They were moving. They knew her name. A crack in the wall drew her attention. Her own reflection stared back, distorted and warped, the grin of the man from the diner stretching wider until his face became a grotesque mask. Ava stumbled backward, fighting the urge to scream. "Mom!" The voice was muffled, coming from the far end of the alley. Anguish fueled her, and she darted toward it. The air grew denser, the weight of dread clawing at her like talons. "Hang on, Jake!" she yelled, tearing past more shadows, now writhing within the alley like serpents hungry for flesh. And then she saw him, a flicker of movement near a dumpster, his small figure nearly lost in darkness. Relief cascaded over her like a wave, but it didn't last. She heard soft, mocking whispers seeping from the corners, words that twisted meaning into madness, echoing phrases she'd heard before, callous and cruel. "Mom, don't leave me." Jake's voice trembled, laced with terror. Ava reached for him, lunging forward, when suddenly the shadows lunged, intertwining with her limbs, pulling her back. Panic surged, she fought against them, kicking and clawing at the dark tendrils wrapping tighter around her. "Please. No!" she screamed, the darkness closing in. The air thickened, transforming into a suffocating blanket that pressed against her skin. Ava strained against the pull, the whispers now a cacophony of laughter and cries. She could feel them, faces pressing against the walls of her mind, gnashing teeth, taunting her to surrender. "Mom! Help!" With a primal scream, Ava made one last desperate lunge, a soup of shadows threatening to consume everything she loved. Just as she felt herself slipping away, a jolting sensation shocked through her, and the illusions shattered, pulling her back. Dread loomed over her as she realized, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Jake, who was fading further into the darkness. A hollow laugh rippled through the air as the shadows swirled around her, converging towards one terrifying commonality. She turned to look deeper into the abyss, hoping for an escape from the entity that thrived in the unseen corners. Suddenly, the voice stopped, a drum roll of silence before moving closer. The shadows morphed and shifted, leading her somewhere she never intended to go. And then she heard it again, a whispered warning from the void. Every choice has a price. Her choice loomed ahead, the darkness beckoning her to follow or to fight. What price would she pay to save Jake? A shiver coursed through her as she took a step further into the unknown. Ava plunged deeper into the darkness, each hesitant step drawing her further away from the faint light of the diner. The shadows writhed around her like restless spirits, whispering secrets she dared not comprehend. A chill wrapped around her heart, tightening its grip as she forced herself forward, desperate to reach Jake. "Stay close!" she shouted into the void, her voice trembling as it bounced back, distorted, against the alley's damp walls. The air thickened, as if the shadows were feasting on her fear, growing bolder. She caught sight of Jake again, his small frame swaying just ahead, cloaked in the oppressive darkness. "Jake!" Her voice cracked, and dread pooled in her stomach as she hurried toward him, her pulse quickening. "Mom?" His voice was small, laced with terror that sent a fresh wave of panic surging through her. But the moment she reached out, jagged shadows snaked past her hands, twining around her wrists like shackles. "No!" she shrieked, feeling their cold grip tighten. They pulled her back, deeper into their abyss, and the distance between her and Jake stretched unbearably. "Mom! Please!" His cry sliced through her like a knife, each syllable dripping with desperation. "And that's just the beginning." A raspy voice slithered through the shadows, echoing within her mind. It was the same voice, warped by malice, she had heard in the diner. "Let him go!" Ava screamed, her breaths coming in frantic gulps. She fought against the dark tendrils, legs buckling under the weight of unseen hands. The laughter swelled, drowning out her thoughts, mocking her futile resistance. "Every choice has a price," they hissed in unison, their whispers brushing against her skin like icy fingers tracing the outline of fear. With a surge of adrenaline, Ava twisted, pulling at her limbs with all her strength. She could feel hope slipping through her fingers, but the urge to save her son fueled her resolve. She needed a choice, a way to break free. She lifted her head, straining against the thick darkness. "Leave him alone!" she screamed, summoning every ounce of power she could muster. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, retreating slightly, as if her defiance had startled them. "You think you have power here?" they jeered. But their words faltered, replaced by a sinister humming that made the ground tremble beneath her feet. In that split second of hesitation, she bolted forward, propelled by the thought of Jake's terrified face. The shadows snapped at her heels, claws reaching from all sides. As she sprinted, she caught a glimpse of his figure again, now turned away, lost in the black that enveloped him. "Jake!" she cried, drawing nearer, the desperate tone of her voice shattering the heavy stillness. But just as she thought she could bridge the gap, the shadows coiled tightly, dragging at her, threatening to devour her completely. The laughter swelled again, and she realized she was losing time. "Stay or go," the seductive voice cooed, slicing through her resolve. The alley began to pulse, a dark heartbeat echoing through the air, vibrating against her forehead with a sickening rhythm. "I need him," she gasped, choking back the sobs as she reached for Jake one more time. His form flickered, weaving in and out of existence, an illusion tangled in the dark weave around them. Each heartbeat felt heavier, each breath a reminder of panic. Ava was losing him. In that moment of terror, something in her shifted. "What do I have to do?" she half whispered, half screamed, shaking with fear as she faced the shadows. The laughter fell silent, hovering in the eerie stillness, before the response pierced her like ice: "Embrace the shadow, or lose everything." She trembled, the weight of the choice pressing like a vice around her heart. Would she dare enter the darkness to save Jake? As she hesitated, shadows curled around her, waiting for her decision, hungry for the price of her choice. "Now!" the voice commanded, echoing with urgency. And in the yawning pit of night, Ava's heart braced for the decision that would change everything. What would she become in the fight? Against the shadow? Ava's mind raced, her breath quickening as the shadows writhed hungrily around her. The whispers intensified, clawing at her sanity, urging her to give in, to surrender to the darkness. "Embrace the shadow," the words echoed in her head like a sinister lullaby. She clenched her fists, the shadows tightening their grip around her wrists, a chilling reminder of what was at stake. She could feel the cold creeping into her bones, dragging her deeper into despair, but the thought of losing Jake even more than the darkness was unbearable. "Jake!" she cried, her voice trembling as the shadows pulsed with malevolent glee. Just hold on. Mom. His voice was fading, slipping away like sand through her fingers. Panic surged again. This challenge had become more than just saving him. It was a test of her very being. Everything has a price, the darkness continued to taunt, its voice a blend of laughter and sorrow. What will you pay? Ava's heart thudded, the rhythm echoing in the heavy silence of the alley. It was a sickening contrast to the howling whispers that surrounded her. She felt as if she stood at the edge of an infinite chasm, teetering between hope and despair. Her mother's face flashed in her mind, the bruises, the screams, the way shadows had once closed in around that moment. Ava had vowed to never let that happen again. But now, the shadows beckoned with a false sense of comfort. Join us never. She screamed, feeling the fire of defiance swell within her. She grounded herself. What do you want from me? The shadows roared in disapproval. For a heartbeat, they recoiled, just enough for her to glimpse Jake, his face frozen in fear, eyes wide and pleading. Take me, she begged suddenly, words tumbling out in a rush. Take me instead of him. The shadows paused, straining to process her desperate offer. The laughter dimmed, momentarily replaced by a whispering hush that buzzed like electricity in her ears. A willing sacrifice, how delicious! Ava gritted her teeth, forcing herself to remain steady. I'll do whatever it takes to save him. The shadows flickered, revealing flashes of grotesque faces, warped and twisted. They brushed against her skin, cold and mocking. Very well, little one, the shadows hissed, the timbre now low and sultry. Make your choice or watch him drown in despair. Jake's terrified eyes bore into hers, wrapping the horror around her like chains. There was no hesitation, she could see the reflection of Jake in that sickening darkness. She would not abandon him to this nightmare. Take me. Ava screamed again, rage igniting her soul. In an instant, the shadows closed in, the tendrils tugging and pulling at her, dragging her closer to their dark heart. As they encircled her, the world began to dissolve. She felt herself slipping, consciousness stretching like a taut string ready to snap. She could hear Jake's desperate cries fading into echoes, swallowed by the insatiable darkness. Welcome to our realm, the whispers promised, enduring and eternal. You will learn, you will suffer. Suddenly, Ava felt herself pulled in every direction, pain, confusion, and a dizzying sense of darkness. What have I done? She thought, but even as the words formed in her mind, the shadows thickened, smothering her thoughts. In the fleeting moments of her unraveling, just before the darkness consumed her entirely, a sliver of hope sparked. I will find you, Jake. I will save you. But the oppressive gloom wrapped around her, stifling her cries, turning her resolve to dust. Just then, amidst the despair, a low, ominous growl resonated through the shadows. You will not be alone, there are others who can teach you. And with that, the shadows began to peel back, revealing a place warped and twisted, where figures lingered, their eyes shining dangerously in the dark. Ava's heart raced. She felt herself caught between desire and dread, a swirling mix of terror, temptation, and rebellion. What price had she truly paid? As she stood unmoored in her new reality, one question taunted her relentlessly, piercing through the fog: what kind of monster would she have to become to rescue her son? And so, in a world of consuming shadows, Ava knew her fight had only just begun. The air throbbed heavy with darkness as Ava adjusted to her new surroundings. The figures loomed closer, their faces eerily lit, twisted into grotesque masks of sorrow and malice. Each heartbeat echoed with despair, the tendrils of shadow still lingering around her waist, a sinister embrace. Welcome, new initiate, crooned a voice edged with silk and razor. Ava turned, eyes darting around, landing on a woman with hollow cheeks and lips stretched in a parody of joy. You've chosen wisely. This is the underworld, a place where we reshape ourselves to where is Jake? Ava interrupted, feeling the fear churn inside her like an angry storm. I'm not here for whatever you want to teach me. The faces around her flickered with amusement, their eyes glinting like shards of glass. Ah, but your son is a curious case, the woman said, her grin swelling. He is very much entwined with our realm. The longer you stay, the deeper the bond will grow. Ava's pulse quickened, dread unleashing a fresh wave of terror. What have you done to him? Now, the woman teased, stepping closer, shadows swirling at her feet like a pet. In our world, we only show reflections of truths. The boy feels fear, yes, but he is also searching for you. Your bond gives him strength and weakness. Stop playing games. Ava shouted, the resolve blossoming in her chest like a painful flower. I will not let you take him. A chorus of laughter broke free, a cacophony of dark delight that sent a shiver down her spine. Then you must follow our 10 sinister rules. Abide by them, and maybe you can find your way back to him. The woman leaned in closer, the shadows coiling around her neck, eyes flaring with delight. Fail, and you may become one of us. What happens if I refuse? Ava shot back, her voice trembling. Refusal leads to despair, and despair, my dear, is a tempting harvest, the woman whispered. One that engulfs and devours. Ava's gaze hardened. What are the rules? Let us start with the first, always feed the shadows. They will reward you with knowledge, but starve them, and they feast on your soul. The woman's grin widened, and the surrounding figures leaned in, hungering for her reaction. But how? Ava asked, frustration blooming. The woman pointed to a chest of drawers in the corner, revealing snippets of memories, trapped within glass jars. These are your darkest fears. Feed them to the shadows, lest they turn against you. Ava's heart thudded. She thought of her memories, her failures, her darkest nights. The memories of Jake. Would she really have to feed on her own pain to survive? Rule 2, the woman continued, her voice a seductive purr. Trust no one here. Those who appear like allies may be your greatest adversaries. A heavy silence hung in the air, solidifying Ava's instinctual dread. She could see the glimmer of sharp teeth within smiles that promised safety. 3, the woman said. You must confront your past. The shadows will trap you in the memories you wish to forget. Face them or be lost forever in the void. A shiver rippled through Ava's spine. What does that mean? Why, it means, she said, her voice now a sultry whisper, that in order to find Jake, you will have to walk through what you fear most. Only then will you grasp how to save him, and maybe, just maybe, reclaim your own soul. As the chilling implications washed over her, Ava felt the pull of her old insecurities, creeping up like vines from the ground. Would she brave those personal demons? With every rule that fell from the woman's lips, the shadows tightened their grip around Ava, suffocating fragments of light that glimmered in her heart. A heavy inhale broke the tension, and Ava stepped back, dread forming a knot in her stomach. She now stood precariously at the edge of the unknown. What if I try to escape? She asked, her voice wavering, masking the fear with bravado. Then you invite the shadows to feast, the woman warned, eyes narrowing dangerously. And trust me, the hunger grows insatiable. The darkness pulsed as Ava took a step back, assessing the twisted faces that surrounded her. What had she truly stepped into? A pulse of anger surged through her, igniting a flicker of defiance within. I won't let you win. You'll see. Very well, the woman grinned, stepping closer to the inky shadows. Let us see if you can hold on to that hope. Ava's heart raced. The rules were just beginning, and with each one, the shadows drew nearer. As she stood at the precipice of despair, the question loomed larger than ever: could she face her past without losing herself to darkness? And in the stifling silence of that cursed diner, Ava realized her survival was no longer just about finding Jake, it was about unearthing the secrets buried deeper than she ever imagined. Secrets that threatened to consume her whole. Ava took a shaky breath, the weight of the shadows pressing in around her like a thick fog. Memories drifted through her mind, jagged pieces of her past that she had tried so hard to bury. Each echoed laugh of the figures tightened the knot in her stomach. She couldn't let them see her falter. "Very well," she murmured, her voice steadier than she felt. "What's next?" The woman's eyes gleamed with delight, reflecting the glow of the glass jars. "You're eager, good. Rule 4, find the key. The key is hidden where your pain runs deepest." Her voice slithered around Ava like serpents, tightening with each word. "Only then will you learn the true nature of your bond with Jake." Ava shuddered at the thought of digging through that pain. "Where?" she demanded. "Where is it?" The woman merely chuckled, the shadows dancing wickedly around her. "Ah, but that's something you must discover on your own. The shadows will guide you, if you choose to follow." Ava's heartbeat raced. She could feel the translucent shadows whispering her name, urging her on. Every instinct screamed for her to resist, but part of her longed for clarity, for closure. "Rule 5 is even more crucial," the woman continued, her voice softening, almost seductive. "You must share your fears, your memories, for those who clutch their darkness too tightly risk never escaping it. Pass them on to the shadows, and they may spare you." The figures around Ava began to sway, their ethereal forms blurring at the edges, drawn to the promise of her fear. She glanced defensively at the jars again. Each represented a piece of her, a fragment of sorrow or regret. "Why would I trust you?" Ava shot back, anger fueling her resolve. "You're all just tricks, feeding on pain. I won't give you anything." "Ah, but you underestimate them," the woman cooed, her voice a silken dagger in the air. "They will find it whether you offer it willingly or not. It's only a matter of time. Feed them your fear, or they will consume you whole." Ava closed her eyes, her mother's faint whispers echoing in her mind. The fights. The tears. The moment everything had spiraled out of control. The guilt was a bitter taste in her mouth. Would accepting that pain really save her? The laughter returned, this time mocking, reverberating through the diner. It wrapped around her like an unshakable chain, forcing her to face a truth she had long avoided. "Move on to Rule 6, the woman said, eyes narrowing as she watched Ava wrestle with herself. "You must ally yourself with those who wander the shadows. Trust is a delicate game here, but without them, you'll be lost." Ava felt her heart tremble. Who could she trust in this realm of deceit? The figures grinned, shadows slithering over their fingertips. "What if I don't want to make allies? What if I want to do this alone?" Ava challenged, a flicker of rebellion igniting in her chest. "Loneliness, child, is another face the shadows wear. They thrive in solitude," the woman responded, her tone darkening. "You may choose to fight alone, but you must understand they are always watching, waiting for your resolve to crack." Each word crashed against Ava's defenses, leaving her vulnerable. The closer she drew to the core of her pain and the more she struggled, the more the shadows seemed to surround her. The diner felt smaller, tightening like a noose. Ava steeled herself. She wasn't about to give in. She would face whatever memories awaited her. She had to find Jake. She had to break free from this nightmare. "Ready for Rule 7? The woman asked, her smile glinting evilly. "Just tell me." Ava snapped, her patience fraying. "Embrace the shadows," she said, her voice a haunting hush. "Only by accepting darkness can you find the light, and by submitting to it, you may gain an ally you least expect." Ava stiffened. Did she really want to embrace the very darkness that had haunted her? But the thought of Jake, of his innocence, drove her forward. Maybe the shadows held more than dread. Maybe they could lead her to him. As the woman hovered closer, wrapped in a shroud of anticipation and menace, Ava wondered if she'd crossed too far into the abyss already. Another rule was about to land heavy on her shoulders, and it felt like the final piece before the fall. What happens next? She whispered, each word laden with fear. Next, my dear, we begin the true test. The woman's grin widened ominously. And it all starts with a choice. A chill raced down Ava's spine as she stared into the abyss, a profound darkness staring back. The shadows were alive, hungry. Would she choose to embrace them, or would they swallow her whole, leaving nothing but echoes of her pain behind? Ava felt her heart pounding against her ribs as the woman leaned closer, a predator in a realm of uncertainty. The whispers of the shadows grew louder, swarming her thoughts, each one tempting her with promises of answers and the warmth of forgotten memories. Choose wisely, the woman hissed, her breath like cold steel against Ava's skin. What will you sacrifice? Ambivalence ripped through Ava's gut. She could feel the warmth of her humanity slipping away as she stepped toward the neighboring shadowy figures, their faces a wild blur of tortured emotions. Hadn't she already lost too much? The woman gestured toward the jars surrounding them. Your pain binds you here. Your choice could release you or bind you deeper. Releasing all of this one lead to peace, Ava gasped, the possibility of surrender gnawing at her. Then perhaps, embrace it all, the woman urged, her eyeglasses reflecting the very darkness Ava sought to escape. After all, sweet Ava, it's the truth within that shapes your bond with Jake. A wave of nausea rolled through her. Would facing her fears lead her to freedom, or deeper into despair? With each moment, the boundaries of her reality twisted and shrank, the diner warping around her. She could barely breathe under the weight of anticipation. Let us start with your most shadowy memories, the woman said, a sing-songy cadence to her voice. She pointed to the largest jar, a swirling murk that oozed despair. Retrieve what you fear the most, a time you wish to forget. Desperation clawed at Ava's throat. And what if I refuse? The laughter erupted again, this time echoing all around her, a chorus of haunting chuckles that made her skin crawl. Refusal means they'll consume you, the woman replied, her smile wide and predatory. Ava clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. She could feel the shadows pushing against her, almost demanding entry. Determined not to be unseated, she closed her eyes, searching for the darkest corner of her mind. A singular moment rose above the noise, the day her family shattered, 2 lives forever altered by a single accident. The suffocating anguish splashed against her consciousness. Pick your memory. The woman urged, her voice sharp, slicing through silence. Or help them feast on your despair. Fine. Ava shouted, fear anchoring her feet to the ground. But as she stepped toward the jar, goosebumps cascaded across her skin. She reached out, hands trembling as she grasped the cold glass. Do it. The woman commanded, desire flickering in her eyes. With a sudden jolt, Ava slapped her palm against the jar. It vibrated violently. The shadows roared, flooding her with pain, memories racing to the forefront of her mind. She could see it clearly now, the car wreck, the screams, the shattered lives. Tears streamed down her face as the jar absorbed her anguish. The shadows licked at her despair, swirling gleefully around her, whispering dark secrets. See how it craves you? The woman said, reveling in Ava's torment. Now, you understand. Ava staggered back, her body trembling as cold sweat dripped down her brow. The shadows danced, waiting for the next offering. Ava gasped for breath. Would revealing this pain release her or plunge her deeper into the nightmarish depths? I want tea. I can't lose myself. Ava struggled against the pain blooming in her chest, feeling half of her begin to slip away. Every choice has a price, the woman's words echoed ominously. You're already shackled, dear. The question remains, what else will you give? In the distance, Ava heard an unfamiliar voice, one that surged through the oppressive silence. Ava, help me. Jake. The sheer panic electrified her essence. Jake? She called, straining to focus through the shadows. But the laughter crescendoed, filling the air around her with a shroud of madness. The last thread of hope seemed ready to snap. What had she unleashed? It was time for the next lesson in her cursed reality, and as she stared into the abyss, she realized they would not let her leave without a sacrifice. Would Jake's voice guide her or echo through the darkness forevermore? Ava's heart raced as reality twisted around her, the shadows awaiting her next move. The stakes had never been higher. What would she do to save him? The shadows danced hungrily under flickering neon lights, wrapping around Ava like cold tendrils. She tightened her grip on the jar, still vibrating from her touch, and took a shuddering breath. The whispering shadows seemed to mold into faces, lost souls, trapped like her, waiting for the next lost memory. "Help me, Ava. I'm scared." Jake's voice called out again, a fragment of hope pierced through the surrounding gloom. "Shut it." The woman snapped, glaring at the dark corners of the diner that shifted and coiled like living things. Her eyes glinted with predatory interest. "He's not here for you. You want him? You must feed the hunger first." Ava's heart raced, racing past despair toward a fierce determination. She couldn't let the shadows distort her memories into venomous echoes. She glanced again at the jar, longing to silence the chaos invading her mind. Each memory twisted like a viper, hissing terrifying visions of her past, a whirlwind of grief and rage, the moment she thought she'd lost everything. "Let me go. Just tell me where he is," she shouted, panic surging. She refused to fade away like the other shadows. The woman smiled, barely concealing her glee, then pointed to another jar, smaller yet equally ominous, filled with a thick, tar-like substance. "Perhaps this will hold the truth you so desperately seek. What do you remember about your family? About the day it all fell apart?" Ava recoiled. "You're sick. You don't understand, nor do you," the woman interjected sharply. "Understanding is your only key to escape, and it requires a price. What will it be?" The laughter morphed into a symphony of torture, pushing at her resolve. She could feel the shadows pressing against her, demanding to be fed, and Jake's voice reverberated through the mounting hysteria. Frantic, she steadied her breath and searched for courage buried deep within. "No!" she yelled, anger rising. "You can't have him." Such defiance. The woman sneered, her gaze hardening. "But defiance against the void only prolongs your suffering." A chorus of whispers erupted around her, voices blending into a cacophony of cries and laughter. She clutched the jar tighter, feeling the glass warm as memories surged up, awakening primal fears. Images flooded Ava's mind, her parents arguing, the anger in their voices, sharp like daggers. And then, the sharp crack of metal on metal, the screams, and finally silence. The moment before everything crumbled and darkness enveloped her. "No! I won't give you this!" she screamed. "You won't take him from me." The woman's expression shifted, amusement giving way to a hungry intrigue. "Very well. Then, what will you sacrifice in place of your precious memories?" In that moment, a chill swept over Ava, crawling under her skin. The shadows flickered at her feet, waiting for a sign, thirsty for release. "I'll let you claim my own shadows instead," she said, her voice steady, but her heart raced dangerously in her chest. "What do you know of that burden?" The woman's voice dripped with intrigue. "Your shadows could be the key to saving him." "Take them," Ava declared fiercely, feeling her resolve crystallize amidst the chaos. "Take my darkness, my fears. But let him go. Let him be free." The laughter turned to howling wind, ricocheting off the diner walls, dark and raw. "Listen closely," the woman said, a dangerous glimmer in her eye. "This path will lead you to truths darker than you can imagine." As the shadows writhed, Ava felt a pull, the darkness around her threatening to tear away pieces of her very essence. She braced herself for the weight of her decision. Jake! I'm coming! She shouted as she surrendered her shadows, the diner's walls pulsating and spinning. What would this sacrifice entail? Would it lead her to him or plunge her further into oblivion? And as the shadows consumed her shadows, the whispers intensified, echoing her name, Ava, help me, Ava. Before her vision faded, she found herself standing tall among the swirling chaos. But did she just make a deal with the devil? The woman's smile hinted at reckoning yet to come. Ava took a tentative step into darkness. What awaited her on the path to save Jake? The air crackled with a palpable tension as Ava stepped deeper into the darkness, her pulse hammering beneath her skin. The shadows seemed alive, twisting and curling around her, each movement whispering obscenities and lost promises. She glanced down. The jar still sat in her palm, a lifeline that shimmered with a faint glow, but its warmth was now unsettling. Where are you, Jake? She muttered, her voice barely a murmur as she pushed through the thick miasma of blackness. With every step, the diner morphed into a grotesque version of itself, the once familiar booths becoming deep pits of despair. Laughter echoed, off-key and cruel, as if mocking her bravery. She squeezed the jar tightly, the sound of her own heartbeat drowning out the cacophony around her. This will work. It has to, she murmured, searching for any sign of familiarity in the twisted shadows. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, forming vague figures and faces. Their eyes glinted with hunger and despair, pleading silently, each locked in their own torment. Ava stumbled back, breath hitching. What do you want from me? She gasped, the bitterness of fear flooding her throat. A low chuckle resonated from the darkness, and then the woman appeared again, her face illuminating the space like a candle's taunting flame. What a curious choice you've made, Ava. Your shadows were stubborn companions. But you've traded them for the truth, Haven Tu? I just want Jake back, she said, a fire igniting in her belly. Whatever I have to do, I'll do it. The woman's grin stretched wider, revealing teeth like shards of glass. And so, the further truth reveals itself. To save him, you must face the rules. Ava's heart sank as she felt the weight of inevitability. Thick tendrils of darkness wrapped around her ankles, pulling her deeper into the void. What rules? She demanded, squaring her shoulders against the encroaching dread. You plunge into shadows not without consequence. In this realm, 10 rules govern the night. Break one and the shadows might break you. The woman gestured dramatically, and the air shimmered, forming ragged scrolls of smoke, each inscribed with a single truth. Ava read the first rule shimmering into view: never stare into a face you don't recognize. A chill spiraled up her spine. The second flickered: if they tempt you with whispers, turn away. The shadows twitched at her sides, offering unknown delights. 3. Always enter with a purpose, lest you forget it. Ava felt a fog creeping into her mind, hungry. Memories distorting, flashes of her parents, disguises of strangers. 4. Do not trust your instincts, for they will mislead you. Dread pooled in her stomach. Did she dare to refuse what felt right? The woman waved an elegant hand. Shall I continue, or do you wish to bask in the horror of the unknown? Ava hesitated, glancing at the shadows hungry for flesh. Continue, she managed, her voice trembling. 5. The pain of another is a mirror. Don't touch it. I won tea. She snapped, to convince herself more than anyone else. 6. If you feel watched, it's too late. You're already claimed. The shadows began to clamor louder, filling the air with the cries of forgotten souls, their faces closing in. 7. The woman continued, simple fear is your greatest enemy. It consumes. Ava clenched her jaw. No fear. No fear. 8. When darkness gathers, stay away from the light. Panic knotted in her throat. How would she navigate? 9. The price of knowledge is steep. Beware the truths you seek. I'll pay whatever it takes. she shouted, conviction bolstering her courage. And lastly, 10. The woman's voice dripped with amusement. If you leave empty-handed, prepare to return. Ava's heart plummeted. A cycle? She hadn't realized. One last whisper echoed through the diner's walls, mixing with the derisive laughter of shadows. Now, what will you do, Ava? With the knowledge and the price yet to be paid? Caught between the urge to flee and the desire to rescue Jake, Ava felt the walls beginning to close in. The shadows danced manically, eager for her next move. Choose wisely. Or risk losing everything, the woman warned, her grin fading into the swirling dark. Ava could either succumb to the horrifying rules or fight against them. But what lay ahead of her? Would she be able to save Jake? Or would those cursed rules trap her in the diner's hunger forever? The choice loomed vast and daunting. Would she have the courage to face the terrible truths waiting in the dark? Ava stood at the center of the chaos, heart pounding like a drum. The shadows twisted and churned around her, whispering dark promises, coaxing her to conform to the sinister rules that governed this dreadful realm. But the cries for help, Jake's terrified pleas resonated in her mind, revving her resolve. Enough! She shouted, her voice breaking through the cacophony, forcing silence upon the shadows that lurked with eager malice. I will not play your game. I'm here to save my son, and I won't let fear dictate my actions. The figures around her flickered in disbelief, their faces contorting in reactions of surprise and pique. The woman, her expression sharpening into one of dark intrigue, stepped closer. So bold, so foolish, she murmured, admiration sparking in her hollow gaze. Very well. Let us see how this defiance serves you. Ava took a deep breath, steeling her nerves. Every rule the woman had recited pressed against her like heavy weights, but they also stoked the fire within. She touched the glass jar, feeling the warmth radiate from memories that had once shackled her but now felt like a source of strength. Rule number 4, perhaps? The woman teased, shadows fluttering around her, feeding off the tension. What will be your purpose in confronting your past? Do you think you can save your son by invoking the horrors you've buried? By confronting what scares me, I can find the strength to fight back, Ava answered firmly, eyes glinting with defiance. I must face it for Jake. Then step into the darkness and embrace the truth. Ava nodded resolutely. The shadows churned restlessly, clutching at her ankles, pulling her toward a swirling vortex of memories. She leapt into the twist of night, embracing the pain that had long haunted her. Images flashed, overwhelming her parents arguing, the car crash, the weight of helplessness, and amidst it, Jake's laughter, a vivid reminder of hope. Each vision cut deeper through her heart, but she held tight to the jar, feeling its warmth encourage her onward. All of it led to this moment. She shouted, forcing her voice to rise above the echoes of despair. I am not afraid. As Ava wrestled through the memories, an incandescent light erupted from her core. The shadows recoiled from it, writhing in confusion as the warmth surged, shattering the layers of cold that had cloaked her spirit. Stop. Do not choose the light. It will burn us away. The woman's shriek echoed, laced with panic. But it was too late. The memories that once encaged her were now bursting forth, cleansing the shadows that threatened her sanity. With the force of the light, she propelled herself through every painful recollection. She felt the weight of despair lighten, memories of loss transforming into lessons of empowerment. No longer a prisoner. Ava declared triumphantly, I will wield my pain, not let it wield me. Suddenly, clarity struck, shadows had a role too. They were not merely enemies but reflections of her struggle. They had accumulated fear and grief, yes, but they were harnessed by her love for Jake. Listen to me. Ava shouted, her voice echoing through the shifting darkness. You do not own me. I control you. And I release you. The shadows sputtered, reforming like wisps of smoke. In that moment of reclamation, Ava felt Jake near. The warmth of the memory surged, illuminating the dark corners of the diner, amplifying the bond that anchored their connection. "Jake!" she cried out, the incandescent light shifting toward a familiar silhouette. "Jake!" A figure materialized from the depths of the dark, small yet radiant, eyes shimmering with far too much understanding for one so young. "Mom!" Jake shouted, leaping toward her as the shadows recoiled. Ava dashed forward, embracing her son as a powerful wave washed through the diner. The shadows crumbled, and the laughter faded into nothingness. The memories that had tormented Ava flew away on fragments of light, dissipating into the ether. "Let us go home," Ava whispered, the warmth of their bond fierce against the lingering darkness. And as they stepped through the diner's door together, the shadows behind them weakened, fading from sight, uncontained in their grasp of fear. Part of her knew this wouldn't be the end, for darkness always lingers, a reminder of struggles faced and overcome. But right now, what emerged from that cursed diner felt lighter. Ava turned to Jake, squeezing his hand tighter. "Always remember," she said, "we can face anything as long as we stand together." With hope ignited and shadows left behind, they stepped into the vast Mojave night, ready to embrace whatever came next. As the neon lights blinked out behind them, a new dawn approached, bright and unyielding. Don't miss the chance to support these gripping tales. Subscribe immediately to the channel to catch more exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. I want to hear your thoughts. Flood that comments section with your reactions and theories about Ava and Jake's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this unbelievable conclusion. Your support makes a difference.